'Tis done, my friends. We finally collected some valuable waste and methods to level up any crafter from level 1 to 80. Thanks again to all those that took part in this series during my live streams. First, a little disclaimer, leveling a crafting job won't make you rich directly at the time you're hitting level 80. You still need to craft gear and get used to certain crafting macros and rotations, which means try to stockpile some gil by other methods first, so that any investment won't be done with horrible pain to your personal wealth. Therefore, I propose that you clear the usual content first, especially the main scenario quest, by taking part in it with a fighting job and focus on crafting afterwards. Alternately, you can level up a gathering job in the meantime to reduce the cost you need to spend for buying the required materials needed to level up a crafter. But don't worry, my Twitch stream and I got you covered, and we managed to establish a cheap way to level up your first crafter without the need to invest tons of gil. So this is drawn from a beginner's perspective, where my second crafter leveling guide will do it in a speed leveling way, with quite some investment. Also note that there are millions of ways to reach the goal, and as I still want this video to be as comprehensive and to the point as possible, we are presenting a certain route that you can always modify in the way you like it, but to make it easy for newcomers, just follow each step exactly and you will reach the level 80 without any hassle. That means, even when not being the speed level method, you can do this in about 4 to 6 hours, and don't need to worry about wasting tons of gil, because Ishgard Restoration, which will be in our prime focus, will reward you with currency that can be traded against all sorts of expensive color flasks that you can easily sell on the market board, but more to that later. First things first, which means you need to choose a certain crafting job. All of them provide a solid wealth when working yourself into endgame crafts, but my personal big sellers are Weaver, Leatherworker, Goldsmith and Blacksmith. But if you want to craft all ingredients for level 80 recipes by yourself, Alchemy is a must as well. Nonetheless, we're heading for the Weaver and Leatherworker to stand as examples for these leveling steps. So heading to Ul'dah and Gridania, talking to the guild receptionist, get your weapon and make sure your inventory has some free space left. Now, if everything is set up and you already got some elemental crystals, you should open up your crafting log, which is set to your H hotkey by default, and choose the recipe that will create the first part of the crafter's own resources, like you got with hemp and yarn for the Weaver, for example. The materials you need for crafting these yarns can be bought from the guild vendor that are always standing next to the receptionist or guild master of each crafting guild. And as these don't cost anything that is relevant to a solid guild pool, go for it. Now return to the recipe again and click on Synthesize. Don't worry, this is calculated for reaching the next specific breakpoint without any gear. But of course, if you have access to the Friendship Circlet or Alamegan earrings, these make quite a difference, and if that's your second crafting job you level up and already have stockpiled some yellow crafter scripts, these engineering manuals will increase the speed of the next step significantly. Oh yes, food buff like boiled eggs to increase the XP gain as well, so throw them in, they're ultimately cheap. Another thing to note, by crafting you will earn experience points that also consume your rested bonus. So if you got any fighting job to level through dungeons or trust leveling, try to always use it for your fighting jobs first, as this bonus is much more impactful on them as it is on the crafter leveling. Especially when being assisted by these mentioned engineering manuals that can also be supported by a free company crafter XP bonus. Every 5 levels you also get access to your job quest that I highly recommend to do if you want to have some elemental crystals or want to get free gear in the process of leveling, as you need those quests for certain high level crafting rotations, unlocking the manipulation trait at level 65 for example. You should do them anyways, so why not early on, and when you can make use of the gear and crystals received. Okay, so much for basic functionalities and preparation aspects. Let's hop into the levels from 1 to 20 that I recommend to hit with this method. On some jobs 26 is also a comfortable breakpoint, but like it is with the Leatherworker for example, you just don't have good ingredient recipes that are required for this quick synthesis. Otherwise you would need an insane amount of inventory space, so hitting level 20 should be perfectly fine, as this already gives you access to Ishgard Restoration crafting, but more to that later. So after crafting the first recipe featuring your job's base material, you're able to quick synthesize them after completing the craft. This is what we're going to do now, and the reason why I bought quite a bunch of this Moko grass. Just put in the maximum amount that can be crafted, which is 99 at the moment of the video. In the meantime, you can easily do some dishes, clean up your room, take the dog on a walk, or look up videos of Final Fantasy XIV content creators maybe. By the way, I have listed nearly each of them into a video, check that out if you haven't done so already. When finishing your last crafts on quick synthesis, you should assess how much XP each quick craft still rewards you with, especially in relevance to your required XP and the one you received when starting your quick synthesis process. If these turn out to differ heavily and don't reward enough for the next levels, head for the next recipe. Most of the times this will be a follow-up recipe that requires the previously crafted ingredient to craft it. And also hop into the next level range on your crafter journal if you're running out of profitable recipes. After that, fruitful recipes require us to buy out ingredients from the market board or gather them up by ourselves. So things are getting way more expensive, and this is where a kinda new method comes in known as Ishgard Restoration. But before doing that, we need to get some equipment, where in every crafter gearing effort we need to follow a strict priority list. First, you need to meet the requirements of the recipe you're going to craft, so head for craftsmanship and control to reach that limit. After that, every crafting rotation depends heavily on the amount of CP that you have at your disposal. The more, the better. So this should always be the stat to go when melding in materia or else. Check out my materia for beginners video to learn about this topic. You now should head for Ishgard to unlock Ishgard Restoration. This is unlocked by reaching a certain point in the Heavensward main scenario quest. So if you want the efficient way, just go for playing the MSQ first. It really makes a difference with this method. Alternatives would be the leaf quest or manual crafting until you reach certain breakpoints, but as your leaf quest allowances are limited, which Ishgard Restoration isn't, I highly recommend to start with crafting when you already cleared the whole storyline, at least until you complete a certain quest in Heavensward that is required for Ishgard Restoration. If you cannot wait until then, check out Mithrie's crafting videos. Even when being outdated on some details, they still follow on the old way of leveling crafter jobs efficiently. Nonetheless, when you have unlocked Ishgard Restoration that is done by following a cutscene filled questline, you can make yourself familiar with all those NPCs, but these two are your main buddies for XP, and this one for trading in your received currency against the die I mentioned earlier to compensate for your expenditure. Then you're opening up your crafting journal and head to the Ishgard Restoration tab, and by being in phase 2 of this crafting event, you need to use Restoration 2 section and choose the level 20 recipe. Buy out all the required materials on the market board and start the thing. A short tip here, these may seem to be expensive in the first place, but always remember that the die you can exchange against the currency received will make up for it. Still, check out the prices on other servers if something seems to be heavily overpriced due to being out of stock or anything. Okay, now to the big deal. The next section will depend heavily on the level you're doing each part, the gear you have access to, and especially the skills you're able to use, so always try to keep that updated as best as possible, and as soon as you're going to hit certain skills, remember to change your macro or rotation appropriately. But of course, this wouldn't be a guide if I haven't covered all important breakpoints for you. So, our first step on level 20 is to get all possible gear that we can get our hands on, because these first levels are actually the hardest. But fear not, a simple way to get some gear are those NPCs selling all sorts of it, and then you just need to add some CP materia into possible materia slots. Maybe head for a high quality weapon when it's affordable, and if you still got issues in taking my macros or rotations to the field, throw in a nice buff food that provides CP and some control in the best case. The requirement for this are 200 CP and at least 86 to 90 control to get it done safely. And just before starting right into crafting, make yourself familiar with these tier levels that your items can be exchanged in. The higher quality you get, the higher the chances you hit a better tier, rewarding more XP and currency. So check out these values. I know, the difference is insane, but until level 30 you cannot get anything past the first tier without spending too much gil for gearing matters. But as 57,000 XP are still nearly a whole level until 30, we're good to go. And therefore we will start with this rotation that I don't want to explain in detail, just hit up my macros found in the description or follow the steps presented in the video. It's really simple here as you're not having access to Biogod's Blessing yet, which makes the deal for most rotations. Oh yes, and if you already got many of these vouchers in the process, make sure to exchange them at the lady to the right, for not overcapping on them. And when talking about rewards, this lady not only sells all kinds of Heavensward related pets, mounts and gimmicks, she also sells the die I mentioned earlier, with which you can easily get back the investment you made for the required materials. So if your way leads you to save each penny for this crafter leveling process, this is the way to go. If on your server those dies are cheap as hell, you can also go for the endgame crafter or gatherer materia, which means there will always be a market for these. Now, our goal is to do the grade 2 Skybuilder stuff until level 40, but there will be a skill-wise breakpoint around level 26, but I highly recommend to hit that breakpoint when having improved your gear by reaching 242 CP and at least around 150 craftsmanship. If these values are far from reaching, use buff food that provides a boost to both stats. Of course, there's also a new macro for this, so make sure to check out the description or just copy them all together into your macro set. With this macro and the help of our new skill Innovation, we are able to get the collectability to the 3rd tier, which increases our XP reward significantly. And even when the next breakpoint is level 40, some people also go the safe way, as the level 20 recipe materials are cheap as hell, so they hit level 51 or 53 before going into the next recipe, due to having access to Biogod's Blessing, which is a game changer for any crafting rotation, and the next stage of Heavensward gear, which is a game changer to your stats. So whatever you're deciding for, hit up some gear and also check out the gear from your grand company, they have some nice pieces to offer as well. Otherwise, go for cheap things on the market board or hit up any trustworthy NPC vendor that at least sells the normal quality gear. And never melt anything else than CP unless you're planning to optimize these rotations and gear metas in advance for leveling all crafting jobs. Okay, level 40. That really demands some heavy CP values, so my tip, either grind down some more level 20 crafts or at least reach a CP value of 310. Otherwise you won't hit a secure tier 2 craft on this recipe, which is required to make a big difference over the previous craft. So food buff is sort of necessary at this point, and a really good one, even when being a high level munchie, is that Blood Bouillabaisse, being very strong in the CP department while also providing good control stats on top of that. Oh yes, craftsmanship should be around 180 as well. By the way, most parts of these macros were constructed by my Twitch viewers, so a big shout out to all the amazing help I got on my live streams, you guys are brilliant. Okay, back to the topic. Certainly we have another breakpoint in between 40 and 60 as well, namely on 50 due to getting access to Biogod's Blessing. Still, I highly recommend to progress onwards until you hit 53, because this provides access to a whole new set of armor that mostly can be found cheap on the auction house. The 51 gear is also nice, but most of the times way more expensive, so keep it straight, cut the costs and do it until 53. Of course, this will use a new macro and a new CP value of 356, all found in the description as well. And surely you will be rewarded with a tier 3 XP gain, so do this until level 63 in the best case. And remember, you may already have a nice set of gear that you can easily upgrade by that recommended gear feature. But the weapons are different for each crafting job, so you always need to update those at least every 20 levels or when you cannot get done any of the rotations. And here we are. Be it 61 or my recommendation 63, if you haven't done so already, now is definitely the time to throw in some new weapons for your crafting job. So find something that's inexpensive and do the same for all Stormblood equipment pieces, which can also be found in Ralga's Reach at this NPC. But make sure to check out the market board first, sometimes those items are really cheap. The next recipes are a bit more demanding, so I really recommend to hit that 478 CP value. But you can easily get there with Blood Bouillabaisse, which I would definitely use here, it's not so expensive on most servers. And due to that massive amount of CP, our range of skills we can use for a good rotation expands, so we will need a macro with 2 parts, so take care that you use the right combination of part 1 and 2 macros from the description. The biggest advantage from having such a phenomenal pool of CP, we're directly heading towards that tier 3 XP reward. So you will need less crafts to accomplish, and the next breakpoint already is found at level 71. Surely you could work out something at level 65 when you unlock manipulation through doing all the job quests. But like I think that many haven't done it yet, everything that follows is not taking manipulation into account. Hitting level 71, we're marching almost to the final steps of this guide and the final levels. That means this is the last breakpoint and last macro we are looking for. Actually, you can choose from 2 different ones. The first being even less demanding than the last one to require 454 CP, with the need to be split into 2 parts as well. And if you already hit up a higher value that you had in the previous step, push up 2 additional CP to get it done in a single macro. To reach certain control and craftsmanship values, head for these NPCs in Crystarium. By the way, another reason why you should do the main scenario quest first. But of course you could also check out prices on the market board, or you can consider asking a free company member to help you out on gear matters. And as this is the fastest step of crafting, put on some enjoyable music and witness your crafting efforts move towards that finish line with ease. So after crafting a bunch of these, turn them in all together and be welcome to the crafting endgame. At least before hitting up some gear and materia melts for that. But that is another topic for another story. Des, where's all that other content like custom deliveries, Crystarium deliveries, leaf quests, etc.? Yeah, good that you ask about it. I really want to emphasize on the point of actually all my videos. If this method brings you to the goal you want to reach, then it's fine. And trust me, we discussed that many times in my live streams. It's the most effective method, especially for your guild purse, while also not making things too complicated. So if you want to dig deeper into the whole crafter leveling for maybe a second crafter, then please enjoy the process of exploring it by yourself. So at last, some facts and figures that I collected when assuring this method for another job. I spent about 500,000 gil, which could give me back 300,000 by selling dice. And I needed 3 hours and a half to complete it. So this definitely is the most straightforward and overall cheapest method you can use. So for everyone that doesn't want to spend tons of gil or effort or brain capacity, go for it. And of course, if you really want a speed leveling method, stick around for my alternate leveling method that is coming up soon. Thanks a lot for all that took part in this journey, especially for creating this amazing pool of info through gathering up so many different ideas and methods during my live stream. And this time not only a special thanks to my patrons, but also to Savoukos, Kaguraa and Linkfan33 for providing so many insane macros and assistance. I hope this video can help you guys to hop into the field of crafting, and if you got any improvements, tips or additional methods, feel free to share them with all of us inside the comments section. See you all on Twitch, for I would love to repeat such a wonderful community project again. And if you liked this video, check out others about all sorts of Final Fantasy XIV content. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, stay healthy, stay safe and keep loving Final Fantasy.